Hello everyone, welcome to Homeschool Happy Hour. Melody here, mama of 4 in our blended family of 6. Today I want to talk to you about who is responsible for your child's education. Before we go any further, I would just like to take a second to say, oh my goodness, I need to freeze this moment in time. If you have curly hair, you understand when you have a hair day and your curls are like, hey, we're gonna do what we're supposed to do today, it's a big deal. And I'm having one of those. And so I keep wanting to play with these little curls because they just keep wanting to bounce. Look at those guys bounce, 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 bounce. If you're new here, please take a second to hit that like button, subscribe to my channel, and follow along as we talk all things homeschool curriculum, mom life, all that fun stuff. So today we're gonna talk about who is responsible for your children's education. Now, this is not exclusive to homeschool. This applies to those parents that have kids in public school as well. I do have 2 children. Nope, not true. I have 1 child currently enrolled in public school. We had 2, but our oldest has graduated and will be headed to college very soon. Actually, really sad about that. I'm gonna miss her. I'm not ready for her to leave. Anyway, we had 2 kids that have gone through the public school system, and we have 2 kids that are homeschooled. So this applies to all of them. I would like to know from you guys, if you could take a second, drop a comment in the box below and tell me, who do you think is responsible for your child's education? Is it the state? Is it your local public school? Is it the teachers in the school? Is it the administrators? Is it you as a parent? What do you think? Where does the responsibility lie at the end of the day? So I'm just gonna jump right in on this one from one mom's perspective. And I'm gonna break this into 2 parts. Part number 1, when your children are young. Now, I'm not gonna define this by age or grade level, we're gonna divide childhood into younger children and older children, teenagers, young adults. And so let's talk about the younger children. When your child is small, before they're even school age, you are teaching them. They are being educated by their experiences and the world around them. Now, there's all kinds of opinion on this as to when we bring in academic learning. Like, is it important that we start teaching our children academics at a very young age? Or is it important that we just let them play and be kids and introduce it later? I'm gonna try to avoid that subject today because that's not what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about when should you introduce academics. I'm just talking about their overall education. And in my opinion, when your children are younger, your child's education, it's your responsibility to ensure that they are receiving a quality education. Now, what that education looks like, huge spectrum. There's a huge spectrum of variety in what that education looks like. But everything that we do or don't do is guiding our children and guiding what they're learning or what they're not learning. If you go to like a complete unschooling, it should be absolutely child-directed, end of the spectrum, then it's still the parent's responsibility to decide what types of things are in that child's environment. Are we spending the majority of our time outdoors or indoors? Do we have electronic devices available or not available? Do we have books in our home? If we have books in our home, what are those books about? What do they look like? Do we read out loud in our home? Do we choose to eat healthy foods? Do we choose to splurge on junk food and eat out all the time? Like, all of those things that you're choosing to do in your life and therefore in your child's life, you're educating them one way or the other. And how you choose to do that is going to impact what they learn. Again, I'm not saying what they should or shouldn't be learning, but you're setting the bar. You're deciding what their education looks like. Now, when they get to school age and you send them to public school, private school, or choose to homeschool, it's still your responsibility. Even if you send your child out of the house for 8 hours a day to go to a public school, and you have a teacher that is taking part in their formal education, whether or not your child is receiving the things that they need, whether they are neurodivergent or neurotypical, that's going to fall on you as a parent. Being aware of your kid, advocating for them if they need you to. I think sometimes we get this idea that if we send them to public school, then we hand off that responsibility. And I say, no, you do not. You're not handing that responsibility to anybody. That responsibility is still yours. Even if somebody else is doing the day-to-day work with them, you need to know what's going on, follow up, be involved, that kind of stuff. And even at home, in the evenings or on the weekends when they're at home, you're still guiding your child. So it's your job. It's a parent's job. It's my job. It's our job. The part where I'm going to flip this up is when we talk about older children. When we're talking about older children, I believe that as parents, we still have a great capacity to influence, and we still have a lot of say in the environment and what their day-to-day life can look like. But as far as formal learning or what a child chooses to do with their time, at the end of the day, it becomes your child's responsibility. Their education is their responsibility. Now, you can take this in two totally different directions. You can talk about the family that has provided all sorts of highly structured academic materials. The kid has to choose how much they're going to engage with that. And even if they engage with it and they complete the materials, are they just getting it done, or are they choosing to learn from that? And on the other end of the spectrum, if you have a home, which I would say for me as a homeschooler, and maybe other homeschoolers, I don't know, let me know what you think. It's incredibly frustrating to me when I see a family that says they homeschool, but doesn't. Now, I'm not talking about unschooling versus using a formal curriculum, because I absolutely believe that you can be an unschooler and a very active homeschooler. You don't have to have formal academics to educate your children into homeschool. I don't think that's necessary at all. But there's a very big difference between the active unschooler and the parent who says, oh yeah, I'm homeschooling them, so I took them out of school. But the parent is not engaging with their child. They are not teaching them basic life skills, let alone the academic things that they need to learn. And when that happens, it makes me angry, because it seems like these are the families that society focuses on when they think of homeschoolers. These are the families that get pointed out and we're like, oh, well, I knew this gentleman who was homeschooled and he was 30 and he couldn't read because nobody ever taught him to read. And when we talk about that end of the spectrum, then I still say it's your child's responsibility. If we're talking about a neurotypical child. Now, if I'm thinking older children versus younger children, I'm thinking based on where they're at neurologically more than where they're at chronologically. So you can have a 15-year-old who neurologically is more like a 7, 10-year-old or younger, and they obviously need more guidance and help from their parent, and therefore the responsibility lands more on their parent. You can have a 12-year-old who neurologically functions more like an 18, 19-year-old, and they have the capacity and to take on their own education and to learn from the world around them without a lot of guidance. Not that they don't still need guidance because they're young, but my point is, as a child gets older, they have to make a choice whether or not they're going to educate themselves. We as parents can provide them with everything under the sun. We can provide them with the perfect homeschool, not that that exists, but I think you understand what I'm saying. There are plenty of kids that just go through the steps and go through the motions, have no motivation to do anything. And while we can help with that, We can't do it for them. Unless you have a developmental delay or are neurodivergent in some way that challenges your ability to learn. At any age, a person can learn new things. So if you don't have the math skills or the reading skills to do something that you want to do with your life, you have to choose to work towards those skills. Now, we all have varying levels of ability in different areas, natural ability, and that is fine. I'm not saying that anyone who wants to be Einstein can be Einstein, or anyone who wants to be Van Gogh can be Van Gogh. I do believe in natural talent and natural ability, but the basics that you need for life, I believe, are attainable if an individual chooses to work towards those. I understand absolutely that when you have a neurodivergence, that certain accommodations may be needed and should be provided as needed so they can have more equitable opportunities. But if we're just talking about your day-to-day stuff, as parents, as homeschool parents in particular, I just wanted to remind you, it's your job to facilitate the environment. It's your job to try and encourage learning. I believe the best way to do that is to try and focus on the joys of learning, which will change for the individual. Different people find different things joyful. And so knowing your child and focusing on how they learn and what they find brings them joy is going to get you a lot farther than just going through the motions and checking the boxes. And so this is why I prefer homeschool to public school, absolutely. But we need to remember that outside of providing that, our children should not be taught that we are teaching them. I am not teaching my child. I am not making them smarter. They are learning. They are making themselves more or less intelligent depending on how they choose to take that in. Again, I'm talking about older kids. Young kids, I think we're responsible for facilitating that, absolutely. And older kids, we need to encourage it. But at a certain point, we can't look at our parents and be like, well, I never learned my multiplication tables because my mom or my dad didn't ... Now, like, you're an adult at some point. You're a young adult, you're a teenager. If you want to learn your multiplication tables, learn your multiplication tables. I have a feeling I might get some feedback here about being ableist or discrediting people that have significant and valid challenges that they're dealing with. And by no means am I trying to do that. I am simply saying that as a homeschool parent, we need to remember our job is to help our children learn how to learn so that they can teach themselves and they can learn their whole life the things that they need or want to learn. So who is responsible for your child's education? First, you are, regardless of where you send them. Whether they're in public school, private school, homeschool, it doesn't matter. When they're very young, you're responsible. If they are older and they still need support for some reason, you're still responsible for advocating for that support. At a certain point, each individual is going to need to take on that responsibility for themselves. And that's where our children become responsible for their own education. I hope that makes sense to you. I think, as usual, I get on a subject and I just kind of start rambling on about it. I don't really mean to. I just wanted to reach out, touch base with you guys, connect with you a little bit. I hope your summer's going really well. I really would like to hear your feedback on what you think and who you think is responsible for your child's education and how you deal with that, how you work with that. If you have any questions, if you want to chat about this further, please make sure and follow me over on Instagram at Homeschool Happy Hour. And you can send me a DM or drop a comment in the box below, and I'm happy to chat with you. Thank you for sticking with me, and I will catch you next time.